Why are you lying to people? Why are you trying to mislead people? And naturally, this is only going to end up being fuel for surrogacy rumors.
The whole description she does of the Portland hospital, the birth, that was completely fabricated. We all know the first interview was given to CBS. We all know that she never intended to go to the Portland hospital. She intended to have the baby at home.
All Harry and Meghan need to do is prove to us that she popped those babies out. And that's all they need to do. And if they don't, it is unfair on the children.
Titles denied, records wiped, and suddenly the palace is acting like the Sussex kids never existed at all.
Take a look back at Archie's birth controversy, because it's not just where the rumors of possible use of a surrogate were born. It's also where Meghan and Harry made some major mistakes that only fueled all of these rumors and issues surrounding.
The line has been drawn, and everyone can see who got pushed to the other side.
It's not quite clear whether Meghan had postpartum preeclampsia or just preeclampsia, which would have been prepartum.
The monarchy lives off documentation. That's their whole game. They don't just exist. They archive every breath they take with that old-school precision only a centuries-deep institution can flex.
And issues surrounding their handling of the children, the privacy, all of it.
Every royal baby gets rolled out in full ceremony, a framed birth notice on a golden easel, a staged christening shot polished better than a movie poster, a slot in the court circular, a name etched into the registry. It's not just tradition, it's protocol, the backbone of a bloodline they treat like a sacred blueprint.
Harry has written extensively, and they have commented extensively on her pregnancies with Archie, as well as her.
So when Archie and Lily got skipped in every official archive, the whispers hit hard. Not because anyone expected these kids to show up at balcony waves, but because the monarchy never forgets its own paperwork. Royal births aren't casual moments, they're historical entries.
Of Archie's birth, quite frankly, and the pregnancy as well. Because during the pregnancy, there was all these suspicions and these weird things that people were like, wait, what is happening here?
Yet when analysts went digging through the documents, nothing lined up. No christening portraits, no official family photos, no registry entries that matched decades of protocol. Zero. This wasn't a slip-up, this was unheard of. People tried brushing it off as the Sussex preference for privacy, something Meghan and Harry always leaned on.
And then when Archie was actually born, they played games, and you know what they did? They won stupid prizes. More controversies, more conspiracies, really, it's theories.
But palace staff kept saying privacy never meant pretending a child didn't exist. Even the most low-key royal kids, Princess Anne's kids, the Wessex kids back in the day, all had their spots in the record. Quiet? Sure. But visible. Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily weren't quietly included. They were straight up missing. And that's when the questions started getting sharp.
Tool and evidence to the theories of surrogacy.
Fast. Why were they missing from the yearly royal portraits, even in those big group shots where every branch of the family was accounted for? And why did staff suddenly look away or switch topics the second someone mentioned the kids? It felt too deliberate. Whenever the children came up in casual conversation, those perfectly staged family moments somehow included everyone except Harry's side.
We're going to take a look back and do an in-depth examination of this entire time in their lives. After the pregnancy dance video, you guys have been asking for this, and I had thought about doing a video like this a while back.
That only poured gasoline on the theories about how these kids entered the world, even though nobody in the palace dared to say a single word. And that's what the public finally picked up on. Silence gets shady fast when it surrounds something that's supposed to be routine.
Dicey area, but today we're just taking a look at the facts and how the public related to it and how the public responded to what actually happened.
In a family obsessed with recording every tiny detail of its history, 2 missing entries scream louder than any press statement ever could. That absence, whispered about in hallways and torn apart online, became the first real sign that something serious was unfolding behind those palace walls. And to understand why Buckingham Palace stayed quiet about Archie and Josh say he is in trouble, Lily, you gotta look at one unbreakable truth about the monarchy. This whole system runs on rules older than half the countries on the planet.
And whatnot, but for disclaimer purposes, it's all just opinion and conjecture when we get to that segment of today's video.
This isn't about polite etiquette or fancy photos. It's about centuries of legal tradition built to protect the bloodline and, more importantly, the image. Under those rules, a child only earns the title of prince or princess if they meet 3 requirements. First, they gotta be born into the legitimate royal bloodline. Second, the palace has to formally record and recognize the birth.
And this was surrounded by controversy, largely to the unconventional decisions Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made regarding privacy, timing, and public communication.
And third, they must be baptized in the Church of England. Miss even one, and titles don't apply. No exceptions. For generations, these rules were untouchable. Careers, histories, entire identities were built on them. Kids like George, Charlotte, and Louis weren't just born privileged. Their place was locked in with ink, seals, and centuries of paperwork.
But the problem is that this ended up causing a lot more friction and a lot more issues that unfolded as the years went on. And now it's really hard for Harry and Meghan to get away from them without doing some sort of Hail Mary, bringing forth lots of evidence to just shut all these rumors down, which...
Then Harry and Meghan stepped into the picture. Suddenly, a modern love story smashed straight into centuries of rigid protocol. The Sussex kids were born far from the kingdom, in a culture where fame mattered more than ceremony, and everything got messy real quick. Paperwork was filed weirdly, baptisms happened privately without Church of England oversight, and palace recognition felt foggy at best. The rules didn't change, but here's where things turned scandalous. For the first time in modern royal history, a whole branch of the family looked like it stepped around rules that were supposed to be untouchable, whether they meant to or not. And the institution reacted the only way it knows how. When you poke the old traditions, it stayed quiet and let that silence do the talking.
And remember, Meghan was so hungry as she was going to be pushing out Lily that they had to stop for, was it tacos at Taco Bell or some such, again, BS?
Suddenly, those dusty letters patent, those ancient rules nobody ever cared about, exploded into headline drama. The palace wasn't just refusing to comment, it was speaking through its own system, basically hinting that Archie, and Josh should say he is in trouble, Lily weren't guaranteed a solid spot in the hierarchy. When a centuries-old rulebook starts getting applied selectively, whispers turn into rumors fast, and the gossip starts moving quicker than any official press release ever could.
With lots of evidence to just shut all these rumors down, which, as you know, I believe they should have done from the start, and it's never too late, because it's your kids. And it's their story of how they came into the world, and they've put their kids into the public view.
That silence from the palace wasn't empty. It felt like a warning shot fired straight across the ocean, and everyone paying attention heard it loud. When Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor was born in May 2019, on the surface, it looked like a fairy tale. Proud parents, happy grandparents, media excitement, social buzz, the whole royal package. But underneath all that shine, cracks in the Sussex storyline were already forming, and they didn't stay small for long. The moment that shook the royal world didn't happen in public, at a ceremony, or during interviews.
If she had preeclampsia, there is no way she could have been released from the hospital.
It happened quietly. It all started in the paperwork. The birth certificate, which should have been a simple formality, suddenly turned into a quiet battlefield over control and identity. People later spotted small but serious changes. Meghan's actual name, which should have been listed plainly as the mother, was swapped out for her full title.
Meghan and Harry have, and gave them public titles, so therefore they have a responsibility to those kids to clear up these types of rumors. But
Her Royal Highness, the Duchess of Sussex. A title instead of a mother. An institutional label thrown over what should have been a personal detail. And to people inside the palace, this wasn't some tiny clerical tweak. It was a bright red signal. Changing a royal birth certificate is never casual. In royal culture, it hints at disagreement, intervention, and in extreme moments, questions about how everything is being presented. Historians and archivists felt the tension instantly because the document stopped being a simple record and turned into a political message.
So the whole thing it goes, I'm sorry, I don't believe a word of any of it.
At the same time, the media picked up on strange inconsistencies. The birth announcements were polished, but the public moments didn't match the usual rhythm. A child celebrated in headlines, yet oddly missing from the official traditions that shape royal identity.
Catherine's children followed a very clear pattern. Now, it was slightly different than how it went when Prince Charles and Princess Diana announced the birth of William and Harry.
Royal watchers, always hunting for the next twist, started digging through registries, comparing centuries-old patterns, and noticing what didn't fit. Would the palace really approve a rewritten birth certificate? Why replace a mother's name with a title? Was it a subtle pushback against Meghan, a reminder of hierarchy, or even wilder, a quiet signal about the child's official standing? To outsiders, it might have looked like some harmless bureaucratic glitch, but to anyone who understands palace protocol, this was the first clear crack in a very carefully built facade.
Absolutely no sense given every details of those pregnancies.
The moment Meghan and Harry's new post-royal storyline crashed into centuries of rigid tradition, the palace didn't have to say a word. That altered document spoke louder than any press statement ever could. What should have been a joyful announcement had already sparked quiet murmurs, planting doubts that grew even stronger once little Josh'd say he is in trouble. Lily came into the picture.
At format, if you will, in part because they were having direct airs. It makes sense for them to follow protocol a little bit more closely. And I don't think when it comes to Meghan and Harry,
the institution spoke through silence and paperwork, and the message hit cold. Being royal isn't just about love or even blood. It's about strict protocol, conformity, and playing by rules nobody dares to question. And Archie, from the start, looked like he was standing on shaky ground.
the exact same protocol is the problem at all. Typically, there is a public announcement when labor begins, and then an announcement upon birth of the child, and then a Photoshop outside the hospital shortly after the birth.
When Lilibet Diana was born in 2021, the world expected another perfectly staged royal rollout. But nothing, absolutely nothing followed tradition. There was no royal doctor waiting, no palace photographers, no official golden easel announcement, no balcony moment, not even a tiny mention in the court circular. Instead, the whole world found out through a California press release, the kind celebrities use when they drop baby news. Not exactly the vibe of a family that built its whole identity on ceremony and centuries of ritual.
And to see mom and dad happy and healthy there was an important thing. It was kind of iconic. They also put the birth certificate up, which we'll get to in a minute.
And inside Buckingham Palace, it was treated like the event didn't even happen. No records filed, no formal acknowledgement, no entry in the lineage, nothing. Because to the palace, if it's not recorded, it's not real within the royal system. That's the cold part of royal protocol. Lilibet Diana came into the world, yes, but inside the institution that controls recognition and succession, she was invisible.
Of those pregnancies were used for publicity in the New York Times, in the Netflix reality series, and then specifically in Spare.
Inside, sources whispered nonstop. Some called the situation unheard of. Others said the Sussexes were breaking from tradition on purpose, almost like a quiet royal separation without any official paperwork. But people who truly studied the monarchy saw it differently. This wasn't just a protocol issue. This felt like a statement. That silence, that absence of recognition, carried one message loud and clear. Titles, status, and royal privilege don't come from personal branding or media moves. They come from following rules that have been locked in place for centuries.
What Meghan and Harry did instead was they did not announce it when Meghan went into labor, for whatever reason. They kept Archie's birth private for over 8 hours.
Even the name itself, Lilibet Diana, meant to honor both Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana, couldn't force her into the official royal record. She existed for the public, but inside the palace's legal and ceremonial system, she was nowhere to be found. And every royal event that followed made it crystal clear. The monarchy doesn't bend for Hollywood shine or media strategies. Recognition isn't something you negotiate, it's something you earn through protocol, period.
Arrived until 8 hours later. They also issued a confusing press release suggesting Meghan had just gone into labor after Archie had already been born.
Social media exploded with debates. Some people swore it was a strategic snub, a subtle power move from the palace to take control back from the Sussex narrative. Others insisted it was all about protecting succession laws, reminding the world that lineage and ceremony sit way above celebrity status. Whatever angle you choose, the outcome didn't change. Lilibet became the first real public example of a child caught in limbo, loved, celebrated, posted online, yet completely unacknowledged by the institution that decides what royal even means. And the silence around her was loud.
Especially given she wasn't using the royal physicians, as is tradition. Surely if there was any serious condition like that, a condition that can be deadly.
In that hush, a story of control, tradition, and quiet authority started writing itself, shaping the Sussex relationship with the crown for years ahead. Lilibet had arrived, yes, but in the royal books, she simply didn't. Because the monarchy isn't just a family. It's a centuries-old religious institution running on rules that feel closer to sacred law than simple custom.
Here with this. And the result was that the media and the public felt misled because they were misled. Even though, as I said before, like Harry and Meghan not following exact protocol kind of makes sense.
Every prince, princess, and heir is tied to the Church of England, and baptism isn't some casual little ritual. It's part of the system that locks your place in the royal world. It's the key that officially unlocks your royal status. It's the quiet formality that turns a child from simply being born into being recognized as part of the royal lineage, with all the privileges, protections, and responsibilities that come with it.
Unlikely to ever get anywhere close to becoming, first, second in the line of succession.
But that step was skipped, and not by accident. People close to the Sussex household confirmed both kids were baptized privately in America, completely outside the Church of England's authority. No palace chaplain showed up.
Well, she wasn't rushed out to Kensington Palace, of course. She was supposedly rushed out to Frogmore Cottage, wasn't she?
No UK registry was updated. No records entered the archives that have shaped royal legitimacy for generations. And that's when insiders say everything shifted. This was the line in the sand. In the monarchy's world, the rules aren't flexible. They're ironclad.
So they're not in the same sort of, category when it comes to the level of seriousness around the birth and the heirs to the throne that are, likely, without a doubt, going to be the ones to actually one day become king or queen.
Without a Church of England baptism, a royal child's status is basically wiped in the eyes of the crown. No Netflix specials, no interviews, no public love can override centuries of protocol. So Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily were adored by millions, but invisible in the one place that defines royal legitimacy. And the gossip? It exploded like crazy. People noticed that photos from family events always seem to skip over the big milestone moments for these two.
Without a doubt going to be the ones to actually one day become king or queen. So Harry and Meghan making slightly different choices isn't necessarily the problem.
Lilibet's birthday pictures hit Instagram and tabloids, but the palace records stayed empty. That silence wasn't accidental. It was a message. Tradition stands above public hype or celebrity moves. For Meghan and Harry, this wasn't some cold paperwork issue. It hit deep because their kids' entire royal identity hinged on this single ritual. Without it, the protected children image they pushed started cracking fast.
If I remember correctly, Dan.
Yes.
So she can't even get where she was rushed to straight, which doesn't surprise me.
And the palace didn't need a press conference or a dramatic statement. Their response was quiet, sharp, and unmistakable. If you bypass the church, you bypass the monarchy itself. The moment Meghan walked down the aisle at St. George's Chapel, her public identity fused with her title, Duchess of Sussex. That title wasn't a cute accessory. It was a passport to status, influence, and a polished image built with precision and glamour. Every interview, every documentary, every charity moment leaned on that royal stamp.
Hospital or do the photo op immediately after. I don't think people really cared about that too awful much. You'll remember, Princess Eugenie, Princess Beatrice, they did not do what Catherine did.
Meghan wasn't just an actress or a public figure anymore. She stepped into royalty and the whole world locked its eyes on her. Titles look powerful, but they're fragile when everything depends on palace paperwork. Meghan's whole identity, her public persona, even her professional brand, leaned on the palace recognizing her children as royal. Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily weren't just her kids. They were living proof backing her image as a royal mother, a protector, a progressive voice. Without official acknowledgement, that foundation started wearing down quietly but permanently.
I wouldn't believe anything she said to me. And none of it is plausible. None of it makes sense. And there is no way that, first of all, let's remember, Meghan was a geriatric mother.
People close to the Sussex circle say the moment the palace stopped including the kids in official records, it hit Meghan hard. Her carefully built brand, the one rooted in recognition and legitimacy, suddenly showed cracks everywhere. Every project she touched, every interview, every media moment carried this quiet contradiction. She presented her kids proudly, yet inside the institution she claimed as home, they weren't recognized at all. It turned into a public relations nightmare hiding inside what looked like harmless bureaucracy.
More quiet, taking her time with these things, fine. Where the problem is misleading the press on purpose and the public on purpose. Putting out a press release that isn't clear, that makes it sound like Meghan just went into labor, when really Archie had been born for several hours at that point.
Insiders claim Meghan felt caught off guard, not by drama, but by the cold truth that her identity wasn't fully hers to control. Interviews couldn't change centuries of rules. Documentaries and podcasts couldn't force the palace to shift tradition.
Is a foolish game to play, and it only diminished credibility and trust.
The institution's silent refusal to fully acknowledge her kids cut straight through the image she spent years shaping.
Like, well, why would you do that? Why are you lying to people? Why are you trying to mislead people? And naturally, this is only going to end up being fuel for surrogacy rumors. Because why else are you being sort of suspicious and secretive around labor and birth?
Gossip circles kicked up instantly. People started wondering if this clash added fuel to the tension between Meghan and the palace. To the outside world, she was a symbol of confidence, empowerment, and global influence. But inside those walls, her control over her own family's story hit limits she couldn't escape.
Around labor and birth, unless you're trying to shuffle out a surrogate and make it look like Meghan gave birth, and you're trying to be weird about this.
Her title gave her prestige, yes, but it came tied to responsibilities and recognitions she couldn't secure for her own children. And that's where the big clash happened. Meghan's identity as a modern, empowered duchess ran straight into the unmovable force of old tradition. From the outside, it looked like she had total freedom.
Archie's birth announcement came in two parts. First, they said Meghan is in labor. Then 40 minutes later, they said baby is already here and was born at 2:26 a.m.
In reality, it was a fragile balancing act, and the palace's silence knocked the whole structure sideways. The cracks weren't just personal anymore, they were public, and everyone caught it.
Purposefully misled the public, and because there was already some rumors and some suspicion, this created huge amounts of distrust, and people theorized.
Every whisper, every strange omission, every quiet exclusion from royal paperwork had people raising eyebrows. Interviews got flashier, public appearances looked polished, but behind the scenes, Prince Harry was reportedly making desperate calls, not for titles or charity events, but as a father, begging for his kids to be recognized.
Theorized and claimed that the couple needed time to stage a story because Meghan didn't actually deliver the children. And so by lying like they did and misleading the press announcements and kind of playing games there.
People close to the royal household say these calls were intense, repeated, and full of frustration. Harry kept pushing for clarity on things he believed should have been simple.
Even more these rumors of surrogacy. Catherine, Princess of Wales, at the time Duchess of Cambridge, appeared outside the Lindo Wing Hospital hours after giving birth.
Inclusion, acknowledgement, and a rightful spot in the royal lineage.
Diana, who kind of made that a super iconic moment and picture. And Catherine looked fabulous each time. These are just such cute moments.
Insiders claim Harry, often described as fiercely loyal and emotionally tied to his family, reached out directly to key palace figures. He wasn't calling as a prince trying to spin a narrative. He was calling as a parent, fighting for something he believed his children deserved.
Loved. When Diana did it, people were excited about it. And it's a positive thing. It's a celebratory thing. What mom doesn't want to know that people are excited?
And that's what made it so personal. These calls weren't about fancy protocol. They were about identity, belonging, and a father wanting his kids to be treated fairly. Every ignored request, every refusal to shift the rules, made something brutally clear. The palace wasn't budging for anyone, even him. Friends close to Harry say the emotional strain hit hard. One confidant even described him as haunted by the silence, a man torn between his love for his family and the rules of an institution he never fully escaped.
When you look at it from that context of people are just happy about this, and it's a celebratory moment, and it is very brief, I think it doesn't seem as weird as some people think. It's kind of like barbaric or crazy.
Royal commentators note this whole situation shows the collision between modern parenting and ancient tradition.
I think that she would have been strong enough to say, I'd really rather wait until the next day if she really didn't want to do it the same day. I don't think there would have been any sort of problems with modernizing it if they really wanted to.
Harry and Meghan wanted flexibility, understanding, and a little humanity, but the palace held firm, applying rules with cold precision. And this wasn't some harmless paperwork stunt. In the royal world, omissions like these carry serious symbolic weight. Every ignored call and every cold reply made one thing clear.
They felt that it was fine, that it was a happy occasion, that it was just a moment of time to get out there and take the photo before you go home.
The children's recognition was only possible inside the strictest royal limits, nothing more. Those calls stayed private, but the vibes around them spread fast.
Catherine and William have really set a new precedent when it comes to privacy, and so if they didn't want to do it, I have full confidence that they wouldn't.
Staff inside the palace noticed Harry's stress, whispered about how frustrated he sounded, and watched tension spill into the press. The world saw a smiling prince, but behind the scenes, those calls were his lifeline.
But it did raise eyebrows that Meghan basically said she had no interest in doing this photo. Meghan and Harry opted for a private birth believed to be at Portland Hospital in London, and they delayed the photo debut by 2 days.
A father trying to move an institution that refused to bend even an inch. And with every call unanswered or politely shut down, the divide between the Sussexes and the monarchy stretched wider.
Breaking with royal openness and accused them of controlling the narrative too tightly.
In the end, those desperate calls didn't change the rules. They didn't break tradition, but they exposed the real human struggle hiding under the polished royal surface. A father pushing against centuries of rigid protocol to get his own kids acknowledged.
I actually see zero issue with Meghan and Harry waiting 2 days to do the photo op and changing the photo op in terms of its dynamic, location, timing, etc. because they're a little bit closer to Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice rather than...
And like all classic royal gossip, the whispers around those phone conversations spread like wildfire.
Princesses Eugenie and Beatrice rather than Princess Catherine and Prince William. In terms of status, line of succession.
People started hinting at fractures inside the family that would shape headlines and public opinion for years. Most folks imagine palace drama as big fights, loud statements, or press conferences that shake the world.
Even more controversy around this particular subject because in Oprah, I think it was in Oprah, but it might have also come up in Netflix, her and Harry's Netflix thing.
But Buckingham Palace doesn't do loud. It operates through control, subtle moves, and perfect timing.
Videos. So I will link those for you up here or at the end of today's video. I'll link those for you at the top of the page. If you'd like to go back and look at what exactly she said about the birth of Archie.
And nothing showed that better than how quietly Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily vanished from the royal records. Instead of making a statement or offering an explanation, the palace pulled off what insiders call a surgical move.
A photo op right after birth. They didn't offer this to Meghan or bring this up to Meghan. And maybe they didn't. I think that it would have been perfectly reasonable for them to not assume that they would want to do a photo right away.
No announcement, no televised scolding, no dramatic snub at an event. The kids simply never appeared where they were supposed to be. Not in the line of succession, not in ceremonial records, not in any internal palace listings.
We've been making huge stinks about privacy and being very difficult to work with, so people were probably like, well, we'll just wait and see what you have to say, and we're not going to put any expectations on you, especially in this moment.
Archivists and palace workers caught it first, trading quiet comments about what the omissions meant. The public didn't notice and assumed it was just a mistake, but in royal circles, a missing name this precise is never accidental. Titles withheld.
So I don't think it would have made sense or been reasonable for anybody.
Recognition withheld. Succession placement wiped clean. Even ceremonial invitations that normally go out automatically to a monarch's grandchildren were skipped. Every administrative move, every empty registry line sent the same message loud and clear.
Suggest to Meghan to do a photo op right after giving birth, and then that's all the more bizarre if there was some sort of suspicions of surrogacy going around behind the scenes.
Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily were invisible inside the formal system of the monarchy. And the method the palace used was icy but clever.
As something very rude and unfair to her, which I disagree with. And she also tried to claim and sort of imply in the Oprah interview.
The kids weren't removed because they were never officially entered in the first place. That meant no paper trail to track, no public fight to spark, no rule book to challenge. It was the kind of move only an institution this old could pull off.
You're not going to give him 24/7 police protection the way Catherine and William's family has. Then I'm not going to do the photo op. Those are not her exact words, but that is what she was implying during this segment during the Oprah interview.
Sources close to palace insiders described the strategy as quietly brutal. By doing absolutely nothing, the palace kept control, dodged direct conflict, and still made its point. The message to Harry and Meghan was sharp, even without words. Tradition, protocol, and old rules outrank emotions, narratives, or modern parenting every time.
Check that out for yourself so you can see what you think about that. But that's how I took it and what it sounded like she was trying to say, kind of a tit for tat thing. Being difficult, being toxic, you know. This just fell right in line with that mixed messaging and the mistakes of the announcements as well.
In Buckingham Palace's world, silence carries more power than any public statement ever could. But that quiet erasure didn't stay quiet for long. The media caught the inconsistencies. Analysts started comparing line of succession charts with what was missing from official documents. Bloggers and royal commentators jumped on the mystery, spinning theories about why the monarch's own grandchildren weren't acknowledged.
Because that extra bit of time then kind of changed tone. Having a little bit more time before we get to see the baby, and this coming right on the heels of the fumbled announcements.
Every missing entry, every blank registry line turned into fresh fuel for public debate. Gossip channels picked it up, tabloids ran with it, and the whole conversation erupted online. In reality, this silent removal was a double-edged sword. From the palace viewpoint, it was calculated, controlled, and completely in line with tradition. But from the public's viewpoint, it was dramatic, suspicious, and straight up scandalous.
And then Meghan and Harry were like, no, Archie was born at 2:26 a.m. actually. So then Buckingham Palace came out 40 minutes later to say, no, he was born already several hours ago.
Archie and Lilibet's absence wasn't just paperwork, it was symbolic. A message that you can't skip tradition, you can't rewrite protocol, and royal blood alone doesn't guarantee recognition. And of course, in classic royal gossip style, whispers of this quiet erasure echoed across social media, analyst circles, and late-night headlines for months, turning the Sussex storyline even more explosive.
They were participating in this manipulation, or that they were withholding information, or that they looked like idiots. So that also added another layer to this scandal.
As months stretched into years, those whispers in the tabloids only got louder. Curiosity turned into suspicion because Archie and Josh say he is in trouble. Lily had become rare anomalies in a system that normally documents everything with perfect precision. Royal watchers, journalists, and every armchair historian out there started digging into family photos, balcony moments, and press releases like detectives on a mission. They spotted gaps, tiny ones, almost invisible at first, but just enough to send everybody into a frenzy. Where were the official christening photos?
To this scandal. A lot of people think that's something Meghan just wouldn't have passed up. And I can't say I disagree. I do think that she would have jumped on it had it worked out that way.
Why were they missing from traditional events where the Wales kids posed with perfect smiles? Why didn't their names ever show up in the court circular, the royal Bible of duties and ceremonies? Every missing detail became a puzzle piece that didn't fit, and people couldn't look away. Bloggers went wild, breaking down interviews frame by frame, calling out inconsistencies. Analysts built timelines that clashed with what the palace claimed publicly.
Jumped on it had it worked out that way. But that does raise some eyebrows for people, or raise their suspicions on what really happened, since she didn't do the photo op, and it seems like something she would have jumped on.
And every question left hanging in the air made the mystery feel bigger and louder. And that silence? Oh, it was deafening. This wasn't the polite silence they used to brush off small scandals. This one felt intentional, heavy, almost sharp. It screamed louder than any official statement ever could. The rumor mill exploded. Were Archie and Josh say he is in trouble? Lily being pushed aside on purpose? Were they quietly erased from the record? Was this a low-key royal grudge playing out behind the scenes? Fans built giant threads comparing announcements, press releases, and history, piece by piece. And since the palace refused to answer anything, the public took complete control of the story. Curiosity turned into obsession fast. Every missing photo, every skipped appearance, every blank spot in the record fed the fire.
They already had a strained relationship with the British press and just the press in general before the pregnancy, before the birth of Archie. Their attempts to maintain more privacy were perceived as antagonistic because of the way they went about it.
By this point, the story wasn't just paperwork. It had turned into a full-blown scandal in the public's eyes. The palace stayed silent while Harry and Meghan's narrative was rewritten by headlines and internet detectives, each rumor crazier than the last. The institution didn't say a single word, but everyone heard the message anyway. Harry and Meghan had crafted their post-royal identity with precision, talking about love, freedom, and protecting their kids from the rigid world they had stepped away from.
Marked a turning point in the public and the press narrative about Harry and Meghan, sparking accusations of being secretive and manipulative. The surrogacy rumors really started to gain momentum.
Every interview, every doc, every Netflix project painted them as a couple carving their own path. They wanted a monarchy shaped on their emotional terms, their truth, their version of family life, but reality didn't follow their script. Behind the palace curtains, the facts landed hard. There were no royal doctors at either birth. If the baptisms happened in America with no Church of England oversight, the palace had no record at all. Lilibet's birth wasn't entered into any palace registry. Archie's certificate had been edited, replacing Meghan's name with her title, and the harsh truth became clear. Inside the palace's own books, none of it matched what the Sussexes told the world. From the palace's side, the stance was cold and firm.
And Princess Catherine, it just made the whole thing seem more bizarre. Meghan later claimed in interviews,
procedure beats emotion every time, and tradition isn't up for debate. Harry and Meghan thought the system could bend for family and modern values, but the palace believed tradition is family, period. And that clash landed right on the kids. Archie and Josh say he is in trouble.
And Oprah, that Archie was denied a prince title due to institutional decisions, possibly rooted in race.
Lily ended up stuck between their mother's public declarations and an institution that moves like a locked machine. To the public, it looked like two competing storylines, a modern couple versus an ancient monarchy. But insiders saw something far heavier, a procedural deadlock with real human fallout. The Sussex image, once carefully polished, crashed straight into the reality of an institution that never shifted its definition of legitimacy. Every interview, book, and media appearance became a reminder that the palace wasn't changing its rules for anyone.
In race. Buckingham Palace's position was that Archie wasn't entitled to a title under current royal protocols, which reserve prince status for grandchildren of the monarch, not great-grandchildren.
All the ingredients were there for chaos. The public's curiosity, the palace's silence, and two narratives pulling in opposite directions. Harry and Meghan's story, once built on empowerment and independence, slowly turned into a story defined by absence. Absence of recognition, absence of acknowledgement, absence of place. In the end, the message hit hard. The palace doesn't care how polished the narrative is. Their version of reality is the one that stands. Tradition stays, emotion waits, and the children, whether anyone likes it or not, were caught right in the middle of the crossfire. After years of dead quiet, Buckingham Palace finally made its move, but not with fireworks. No press conference, no dramatic speech, no stiff royal announcement. Instead, the institution made its point in the most calculated way possible, through silence and omission, a quiet update on the royal website, adjustments to the line of succession,
except for heirs in the direct line. And this created a whole press storm. It sparked further media debate and public confusion about fairness, race, and royal tradition, when in fact the truth is that Archie and Lily, if she had been there by then, were not going to be titled until Queen Elizabeth passed and King Charles.
Registry entries that simply didn't include Archie and Lilibet, no fuss, no noise, just absence. With that move locked in, everything became painfully clear. Archie and Lilibet, grandchildren of a king, now exist in a strange in-between space. Visible to the world, loved by their parents, yet missing entirely from the formal record of the institution that defines royal identity. No titles, no official recognition, no legal place in succession. For a family built on tradition, that silence is a massive statement. Because breaking away from the institution while keeping the perks was never going to fly. That idea has now been completely destroyed. The palace's quiet refusal to recognize the children proves something simple but brutal. In this system, tradition beats narrative, procedure beats emotion, and institutional power sits above celebrity influence every single time. This wasn't a personal attack. It was the monarchy enforcing rules that existed long before any modern storyline. And in doing so, it reshaped the Sussex legacy forever. If you want us to keep breaking these stories wide open, make sure you like, subscribe, and drop your thoughts below. This saga is nowhere near finished.